Hi, I'm Allie Hamilton, and I'm so happy to welcome you to the Come As You Are podcast. Every week, we'll be talking about some aspect of healing, usually around childhood wounds and complicated familial relationships. The topics will always coincide with my personal essay of the week, and this will be a place where we can take a deep dive together. I'm so thrilled you've joined me and delighted for you to always come as you are. Hi there. Hi there. Welcome to our talk. Today, the topic is it could be so much better than this. And I was writing about a lot of things. I had started the essay earlier in the week, and I was writing about a lot of women's issues, and also my dad. Kind of opened the essay by talking about my dad. And when I was growing up, and I've written about my dad and talked about him a lot, but he's 20 years older than my mom, and kind of like an Olympic level womanizer. And I was trying to get across the experience of growing up with a dad who objectified women and also objectified me. And one of the things that used to happen when I became a teenager is my dad would enjoy walking down the street with me, and he would put his arm around my, just drape an arm over my shoulder. And as we were walking, he would say things to me. Now, mind you, my dad was 45 when I was born. So by the time I'm a teenager, he's like pushing 60. He would say things like, look at all these men looking and wondering, how did that old coot get such a hot young thing? And this is stuff he's saying to me out loud. So as a young girl, 12, 13, 14, 15, I'm trying to process what is happening here. My dad is enjoying the idea that other men think we're a couple, which, by the way, I don't think anyone thought. It just was so horrifying, like awful. But I was taught as a young child, you don't express rage. My dad was not someone, neither was my mom. It was not tolerated. There was no talking back. There was no, there wasn't anywhere to put any of those feelings, certainly not to say anything. But I think what I was feeling was rage, and disgust. And I learned at a pretty young age to sort of cut myself off from my own emotions in order to survive. I think a lot of kids who grow up with chaos learn how to do that. You sort of just find a safe place inside yourself to go until it's okay for you to kind of come back into your body again. And the best way I can describe it is sort of like you felt something like what I would imagine it would feel like if you were at the bottom of a well. I felt unavailable even to my own self. And that place became very familiar to me as I was a young kid, and then even as I was growing up. And when things like that would happen, I would sort of snap into that space inside myself so I could keep walking down the street with him and not lose my mind or shove him into traffic. So I was writing about that. And part of the reason that I was writing about that has to do with Charlie Kirk, which I'll get to. in a moment. I was also writing about, what is happening in this country right now and the way this push toward just girls and women losing their rights across the country. When Roe was overturned, people were saying, "Oh, it'll go back to the states. It'll be fine." It's completely not fine. And, I think that there is this strange disconnect here. I mean, there's so many things I could say about this, and I've said them, but in the states with the restrictive abortion bans, maternal and infant mortality rates increase. They go up. So for people who voted, the way that they voted for this administration, for this president, because they think abortion is murder, you actually voted against your own interest. If that's really what you're worried about is babies and babies surviving, then this wasn't the way to vote, because you make infants and mothers more likely to not survive in states with restrictive abortion bans. But it's beyond that. It's not just that. It's it's being pro-choice. Being pro-choice is not being pro-abortion. It's like, yeah, abortions are great. That's not what it is. It's saying to yourself, I trust women. I trust women to make these very painful decisions about their own bodies and about their own lives and about their own resources and about what what is happening, because they're the ones. A man, listen, in so many states now with these restrictive abortion bans, even rape is not, like the Mason Lee Gibson case I was writing about a few weeks ago. A child was raped and she was 14, and the guy who raped her, 22, the judge, they let him take a plea deal, and he's paying her $690, and she has to, he gets paternal rights. It's yeah. This is not making anyone more safe. And a 10-year-old who has something horrific happen to them at the hands of whomever, their stepdad, their coach, whatever it is, then the next thing that happens is they have to carry a baby to term, a 10-year-old. It's this is not how things should be. The government should not be telling you what happens. We ought to be able to figure these things out for ourselves and have enough respect and decency for women, who are more than half the population, to be able to figure out what to do themselves. That's where I am. But anyway, I was writing about this thing about women who will say that stuff. Well, it'll just go back to the states. Right. So now we have in almost half the states, girls and women really unsafe, really not. If a woman now is pregnant and she has a pregnancy-related emergency of a baby she desperately wants and goes to the hospital because she's having a miscarriage and hemorrhaging, she may not get life-saving health care because of the restrictive abortion bans. Because the procedure she needs in order to stop the hemorrhaging if she's having a miscarriage is an abortion. It's a D&C. It's the same procedure. And the abortion ban applies no matter what. It's you could go because you are electing to have a D&C because you've decided I can't do this right now, or my minor child cannot carry this baby to term, or whatever it is. Or you're hemorrhaging, you want the baby, and you're having an emergency, you also need a D&C. And the ban applies either way in all cases. It doesn't matter. And that's why, in case there's any confusion for anyone still out there, women are sent home or women are sent to the parking lot, to come back in a little while. Because for most of these restrictive bans, the doctors can't intervene unless their lives are at stake, death of the mother, right? Unless the mother's life is at risk. And there is no, in most of these states, clear delineation of what that means. Does her blood pressure have to have dropped to a certain level? Do all of her, major organs need to be failing? Like what qualifies legally as her life being in jeopardy? Anyway, I've gone off on a little bit of a tangent, but these things were on my mind because I was thinking to myself, as a woman, if you get in the car and take a road trip, your rights change every time you cross state lines. But as a man taking a road trip, no. And why is that okay with anyone? That's bizarre. If you get in the car with, your son, your uncle, it's like their rights don't change, but every time you cross state lines, you better check and figure out what rights you have and what rights you don't. That's bizarre. We have an administration that is actively trying to make it harder for women to vote. That's the SAVE Act. It's just, we've got a Secretary of Defense, and I know that now we're changing it to the Department. It's not the Department of Defense, it's the Department of War. So I don't know if he's the Secretary of War now, but whatever. Who believes it would be better if the husbands did the voting for the household. And I think that there are just a lot of people who take our rights for granted, a lot of women even who take our rights for granted. And so I was sort of thinking about, like, do people not realize what a small amount of time we've had some of these rights, and some of like not being able to get your own, for women couldn't run the Boston Marathon until 1972. I was 1 at that time. You couldn't have your own credit card or bank account in your name until 1974. I was 3. Landlords could turn away a single mother until 1988. I was 17. Until 1994, it was, well, let me put it this way. In 1994, it became illegal for a man to rape his wife. So prior to 1994, a man could rape his wife. So if, a woman's husband came home and he wanted sex and she wasn't in the mood, or he wasn't being kind, or she didn't feel well, or any number of things, he could take what he wanted. And she didn't have any legal recourse because legally she was considered his property. So in 1994, that's when that changed. I was already out of college a couple of years at that time. It's 2025 and we still don't have the Equal Rights Amendment ratified in the Constitution. I'm 54. So for people who take this stuff for granted, I think either you're not maybe you're not realizing how fragile all of this is, or you're not realizing who these people are and what they want, but they want women back in the home. That's what they want. That's who these men are who are in the government. They want women back in the home pushing out babies. That's our value. And they're very clear about it. They said it over and over again, and they meant it. They weren't kidding around. They meant it. That's who they are. That's what they think. So all those things were on my mind. And when you are growing up in this culture, it's like it's in the water, all of these messages. It's in the water. You're swimming in it. So, sometimes you're just absorbing this stuff. You're not even really, you don't question it. You don't, you're just like, you're getting messages from the world around you about your worth, your value, your place in the world, how much power you have, all of that. And the messages are coming from everywhere. And certainly in my case, the message from my dad was very much about appearance. He would tell me openly he liked skinny women with big boobs. He liked short, skinny women with big boobs. That was his thing. And he liked all different sizes, but skinny, attractive women. were his thing. And he would point them out to me on the street. He would take me on dates with him when I was a little kid until, when I got to be 13, I was like, I don't want to see you anymore. Like, I can't do this anymore. I can't listen to this anymore. I don't want to come over anymore. I was actually 13 when I said I didn't want to go anymore. I didn't say why. It was 15 when I said I can't take it anymore. I can't listen to you talking to me about your need to be seeing a million women and then lying to my stepmom. I can't do it. I don't want to hear about how you can't commit and you need to be free and, sobbing about it. Like, I can't do it anymore. It wasn't until then that I said those. And then he didn't talk to me at all. He didn't know how to speak to me. If he couldn't dump on me and use me as his therapist and his, whatever, co-conspirator, then he didn't have any topic of conversation. It was never about me, like how's life or how's school or, that just wasn't a thing that even occurred to him. So I see people, and that when I, the Jeffrey Epstein survivors, those women coming forward, even though they have been disappointed over and over and over again and used as political pawns and dragged out, I see the most horrible comments under, when they went to the Capitol, a week and a half ago. Who even knows anymore? So many things happen every single day. It's hard to remember how much time has passed. But they went to the Capitol when, of course they decided to fly jets overhead and try to drown them out. But they're there and they're talking about what happened to them. And then there are comments, and look, I am savvy enough. I don't read a lot of comments on social media because it's the worst of the worst. It's these, keyboard warriors, anonymous, all the things that we already know. But sometimes you can't help it. You see things whether you want to or not. And the things that people write sometimes are just despicable. How much bravery it takes to come forward in this world when you have been the victim of sexual assault, which I have also been through, and then not to be believed is the most painful, devastating. It breaks your heart. You feel empty, just totally betrayed by people who should care. And my heart breaks. And, when you're 12, 13, 14 and things happen, you don't always have the words to say, how you're feeling or to explain what happened or to know that you have any agency. I know I'm talking about some things that are difficult to hear, and I'm sorry, I'll put a little content warning on this one, but when I was 13, I got grabbed in a stairwell by a man, and I was just going to ballet, and he grabbed me from behind, and he put his hand over my mouth, and he put another hand between my legs, and he was pushing himself up against me, and he said into my ear, "Just don't move, okay?" And these things all happened in a matter of seconds. I was running up the stairs. I had a bad feeling, and I was running past him, trying to get past him. And as soon as I passed him, he grabbed me. And I froze. I had fight or flight, all those things, and I just couldn't. I froze because I just couldn't believe what was happening. So my heart was racing, and but when he put that okay at the end of it, something in my brain clicked into action because it was there was a question there, just don't move, okay? As if oh, wait, do I have I can do it, and I said no loudly, and I bit his hand, and I took my elbow and just slammed it into him as hard as I could, and I got away, and I turned around, so I was facing him, so I was crab walking backing myself up the stairs. But when I turned around to face him, he looked as terrified as I felt. I think a lot of these guys think you're not going to fight or hope you're not going to fight. They pick on young girls, and I don't know if I would have fought if he hadn't put that okay in there. I don't know, because I don't know if my brain would have snapped into action that way. I was in such a state of distress. And he turned and ran down the stairs. And it wasn't until I saw the door close that I turned around. I did not want to turn my back on this man again. And when the door closed, then I turned and I ran up the remaining stairs and into the ballet studio. I was sobbing and I couldn't even find words. But I didn't need to. I just said a man and I pointed and they knew and they went running, but it was too late. I've written about this. My mom did not come. They called her and she did not come to the studio to get me. The studio was 2 blocks away from our house. I don't remember why she said she couldn't. I think that she said something about my brother. My brother was a lot younger. He's 10 years younger, so he would have been about 3. But as a mom, wild horses could not keep me away from my daughter, either of my children, if something happened to them. And I think for her, she just couldn't do that stuff. She just wasn't able to have those hard conversations or handle those just painful. She just couldn't do it. And I think there was another part of her that was so enraged about the way the world is for girls and women. And I think she felt powerless to stop that kind of thing. And there was this sort of I'm going to throw her to the wolves feeling about it too. Because when I got home, she said, "Are you all right?" And I think I said yes, because that's what I was supposed to say. And that was it. There wasn't any, "Do you want to talk about it?" What happened? Nothing. I was just sort of left to process that on my own. And many other things had happened at that point. I'd had men expose themselves to me on the street. I'd had men rub themselves up against me on public buses and subways. It's not a safe world for girls and women and children. It's not. And the legal system does not support us. It doesn't. So it supports the perpetrators, unfortunately. And that's at every level. And that's a message too. That's a message too. So when you see people coming forward and you see what happens to them, that's also a message. You're okay, if I come forward, I'm probably going to get attacked again in the court of public opinion. I'm going to get attacked. I've been attacked and now I'm going to be attacked again. So it kills me when I see that. It kills me when I see that. Just the absolute ignorance and lack of compassion. It is devastating for me to see, because I know firsthand what it feels like. It's terrible. And when it's women doing it, it's even more, you just want to scream into the abyss, So that stuff has been on my mind. And I was writing about all of that. And of course, we just had the school shooting in Minneapolis at the, Annunciation School and Church that I had just written about, because it just happened, because we have school shootings every week in our country, pretty much. And as I'm writing the essay this week, the Charlie Kirk event happens, and in Utah, right? And at the same time, we have a school shooting in Colorado. And of course it's horrifying. I am someone who has been writing about the gun violence issue in our country for years, since Sandy Hook, because my son is the same age as the Sandy Hook kids. So when that happened, I thought, okay, finally. I mean, I grew up Columbine, this is the culture here, like this has been a problem for decades. This is not a new thing. So when Sandy Hook happened, I thought, okay, that's got to do it. Like we've got to we're going to change things now for sure. And of course, I'm sitting here. We don't have to we haven't changed things because this country's addicted to guns. And the people in power, and look, it's unfortunate. We have a big divide in this country, and it's tough. Like, it really does scare me and concern me and break my heart. And it's also exhausting and enraging and demoralizing. It's all the things, and I think that social media has not helped at all. I think that a lot of the media has not helped. But we have a serious divide, and I don't think the two-party system is working at all. I don't think that's going to I think if we have an opportunity to change things here, we need to do something different, like representational, democracy, something else, not this. However, we're not even in a position to be having a conversation like that right now, because we have people in power who block any kind of sane gun control legislation, mental health initiatives, at every level, at the state and federal level. The Republican Party, people are like, oh, don't make it political. This is political. Everything's political. The way the food gets to your plate is political. The people you vote for, are the ones who are going to go to Washington and represent you. So you got to pay attention to how they feel about these really important issues and take them at their word. If they say that they think women should be in the home and they don't have a plan for affordable childcare, believe them. They mean it. They mean it. Because here we are. Here we are. They meant it. If they say, if they say childless cat women, are ruining the country, what they're really saying is women who have not chosen to get married and have kids are ruining the country. They mean it. They mean that. When the guy running for office says legal Haitian immigrants are eating cats and dogs in Springfield, he means it. He means it. It's not an accident. It's not a mistake. He's not being funny or controversial. He means it. This is the same man. Listen, I've known this man since the 80s. I grew up in New York City. So I knew who he was in the 80s. My stepmom worked for him. She was an architect. She worked for him for a couple of years. And he did the same thing to the company she worked for, the architectural firm she worked for, that he did for a million other companies. Hires them, pays them half up front. They do the job. 2 years later, I think it was closer to 2.5 years later, if you want the rest of your money, sue me. Put them out of business. He's not a good person. I'm not even going to get into it. It's like he's been the same man forever. And very, very, something went really wrong for him along the way. Didn't get enough love from his dad, whatever. I don't know, I don't know. I just know that we're all paying the price for putting this person in office again. And, the man said, he grabs women by the pussy. What do you need to hear? I don't understand, really. I'll never understand what you didn't hear that you needed to hear in order to realize this was a bad idea. I don't get it. And the fact that there are still people supporting this is just, I don't understand that either, at all. It blows my mind every day. But here we are. And this is what I mean. There's this huge, huge divide. So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about all those things. And then we have this horrible event And it is horrible. Gun violence is horrible. Political gun violence is horrible. And some of you may remember when Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark and their family dog Gilbert were shot down in their home. I wrote about it a lot because it was devastating. You know, we have a Trump supporting MAGA, nut dressing up as a police officer, knocking on the door in the middle of the night and shooting them dead in their homes. And then going on to Representative John Hoffman's house after that, doing the same thing. He shot John Hoffman, his wife Yvette, their grown daughter Hope avoided being shot, but both parents shot. And then he had 45 more Democrats in a kill list in his car. So, gun violence and political gun violence here is out of control. Governor Whitmer, Nancy Pelosi, Paul Pelosi, getting attacked with a hammer in his home. These things they've been happening more and more. So no one needs to tell anyone here that I'm aware of not to celebrate when this stuff happens. Of course not. Who would celebrate that? If you're celebrating, you're very, this is not a thing to celebrate because it'll never end. It's like the Wild West here. And we have a culture where people can just get guns. It's like guns or like, Starbucks. It's getting, I really don't know what to say. In Utah, where this happened, that is one of the most lax states when it comes to gun laws. It is wild. 18 to 20-year-olds can open carry in the state of Utah, and after 21, they don't even need a permit to do it. It's like, so what? Yes, is it horrible? Yes, of course, it's terrible. When anyone dies because of gun violence, absolutely horrible. Political gun violence, absolutely horrible. No one should be celebrating because it makes all of us less safe. All of us less safe. That's it. Full stop. It is, I don't even know how to say. The next thing that happens, right, is the president gets on the air. There's no suspect, no motives, no nothing. And he says it is because of, radical left-wing lunatics that this has happened, that Charlie Kirk is dead. Okay, let me just say there are a lot of people who, especially liberal people, who did not even really know who this guy was. Might have heard the name, didn't really know who he was, right? And I knew who he was. Okay. So let me go back, because if you don't know who he is, or you're only just learning, or you're only hearing a couple things, or you're seeing little tidbits, let me just talk about this for a second. Ultra conservative, 31-year-old at this point in time, but he's been, on the scene for years now. Christian nationalist pundit who has an organization called Turning Point USA, and he goes around the country. One of the things he does is a podcast. He goes around the country going to colleges. He dropped out of community college, but he goes to colleges. He doesn't believe in higher education, doesn't like professors, doesn't respect the institution. But he made his fortune, net worth of $12 million, I think. He made his fortune going to college campuses, having these quote unquote prove me wrong events where he would debate with college students. You have a 30-year-old man debating with, 18, 19-year-old kids. He, of course, is used to being in front of large crowds all the time, and they are not. And he's got his shtick down with his, sound bites and things, and they make these viral videos, and that is how he amassed his fortune. And And there are people right now who are like, and he would say things, right? So if you only saw, let's say, like, I don't know, a 10 or 15-second clip, he would say things like, it's really important for us to be able to debate. We're not going to agree on everything. And it's really important for us to be able to discuss like very differing viewpoints without turning to violence and without like getting so entrenched in our own feelings that we're not listening anymore. You know what? I totally agree. And if I only saw that clip, I would think that's a reasonable guy. What a loss that he's gone because he was teaching kids to really listen to each other. Yeah, okay. So not who he was. He was incredibly racist. Incredibly racist. He believed the civil rights movement was a mistake. He believed that Black women did not possess the brain processing power to be taken seriously. Women like, Ketanji Brown Jackson and Joanne Reed and Michelle Obama. He would say these things openly. He said that if he got on a plane and the pilot was Black, he would be concerned, like, oh, is this person qualified? He believed women should submit to their husbands, that birth control made women bitter and angry, that women over 30 in the dating pool were not attractive. There was an event he did, a Turning Point, like Young Women's Summit, which of course I'm like, what parent is bringing their young girl to this summit to listen to this man speak? Ugh. But there was an event where a 14-year-old girl said to him, you know what, I would like to be a political journalist. That's like something I'm interested in. And I think I want to go to college. And he said, if you want to go to college, that's okay, but you should go for an MRS degree, meaning a Mrs. degree, meaning go to college to find a husband, girls. Don't bother trying to put knowledge in your pretty little heads. Just go to college. It's a good place to find a husband. He believed that women should always prioritize being wives and mothers over their careers. This is the kind of stuff that he was saying to young people around the country. He was going to these college campuses. He went and did it's called a surround event, but it was one of these like at a college campus on abortion. And one of the young women said to him, well, wait a second, like what if hypothetically you had a daughter, like a 10-year-old daughter? He's like, I do have a daughter. She's like, okay, but hypothetically, let's say your daughter's 10 and she gets raped. Are you going to make her have that baby? And he said, yes, she would carry that baby to term. Yes. Which is like, I don't know what to say. But if you haven't seen a 10-year-old girl lately, the idea that any father would be saying, yes, if my 10-year-old daughter were raped, the next thing that I would decide that was going to happen to her tiny little body is that she would then have to carry a baby to term and go through trial. I don't know what to say. I could start crying right now, but I'm also like enraged, So this is who we're talking about. And there's more. There's so much more. I linked so many things this person said over and over again. And by the way, big Second Amendment proponent, like did not, he believed, in fact, in like 2023, he was at an event, I think it was April 5th, and he said, that he believed, unfortunately, a certain number of deaths due to gun violence were part of the price we paid for the Second Amendment and that it was worth it. He believed it was worth it. Now, of course, at the time, he's not talking about his potential, death due to gun violence. He's talking about the kids across the country. He would quote the Bible verse in Leviticus about gay people being an abomination. This was not a good human being, okay? And the way he died is horrific. Gun violence in our country is horrific, and no one should be celebrating. So both things can be true. What happened for me, like I'm writing and this thing happens, and it's just, I start to see people posting things about their shock and grief and horror that he has been killed. People I know in my community who have never posted about gun violence, about all the children being killed, all the school shootings we have. We never, not once. And then this man gets shot who doesn't believe Black women possess brain processing power and thinks the civil rights movement was a mistake and thinks gay people are an abomination and women should submit to their husbands. He becomes a victim of gun violence, and then they're going to post. Then they get upset about it. It is, I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what to do with that. But it really was, it put me just in such a deep state of despair. Because a lot of the time I feel like I'm in like upside down world. And then no suspect at the time, the president of the United States gets on TV, pre-recorded, and says, this death is due to radical, left-wing lunatics. And stokes the flames of division and hatred and and we had in Huntington Beach the last 2 nights, neo-Nazis having rallies, and they're chanting things like white man fight back, white man fight back. Are you kidding me? Really? Because white men are being oppressed in our country? Give me a break. This is who people are carrying water for. A man who inspired this kind of hatred. And he did. He did. It's terrible he died the way he did. And he also chose to live his life and make his money sowing the seeds of division and racism and bigotry and misogyny. Both of those things can be true at the same time. And the people who are twisting themselves in knots to carry water for this man, I saw so many, he's a father. He's a father. Yeah, that's why I kept saying in my essay, lots of people are dads. Just because you are someone's dad does not necessarily make you a good human being. It's not how that works. I wish it worked that way. It would be great. Everyone deserves for it to work that way. To have, the minute you have a child, you become a good person. Yeah, it would be terrific if it worked like that. But it does not, as many of us can attest to. But the gaslighting, and then you have all these people, like all these right-wing people they instantly start parroting the talking points. Nancy Mace, Democrats have blood on their hands. Again, at the time she's saying this, no suspect in custody, no motive, no nothing. And this is what she's saying. And I give the journalist, I got to go see who that was who said this to her, but he said, well, wait a second. If Democrats have blood on their hands for this, then do Republicans, why? How could they? Again, no suspect. So what are we talking about? But if that's the case, then do Republicans have blood on their hands for Melissa Hortman and her husband, Mark, and their dog, Gilbert, and John Hoffman and his wife, Yvette, and their daughter, Hope, and the 45 other Democrats that he was trying to kill? I mean, what are you talking about here? And there's no suspect and no motive. So what are you talking about? It's like, and then, please already, anyone who's still confused about Elon Musk, I don't know what to say to you, but he gets on there and someone says the left is the party of murder. Listen, again, okay, I am not someone, I think we need a whole new thing here, a whole new thing. I don't think either side is getting it right. But if I have to get on a bus, I'm getting on the bus going to the left 100%. That's going a lot closer to where I want to be than the other bus. That bus, I don't even understand what the hell is going on. I do not understand. Honestly, for the life of me, I don't understand what people are thinking or doing anymore. I just don't. I'm just going to very honestly tell you, and I'm not, if we're talking about being decent people, I don't understand what's happening. But he gets on X and says, the left is the party of murder. The left has been trying to get sane gun control legislation for decades, and Republicans are blocking it at the state and federal levels every single time. It is not to say that Democrats never take money from the gun law, because they do, but many, many fewer and way less money, and even less now because those records are public. It is Republicans who are in the pocket of the gun lobby and have been for years. So, and I know this because I have been fighting hard to try to get some kind of sane gun legislation on our books, because I have children in this mess. I have school-age children in this mess, both of whom have texted me during lockdowns. It is not normal that our small children have active shooter drills. That is not a normal thing. It's been normalized. It's not normal. It's like none of this is normal. So I have been donating and writing emails and, protesting and doing everything in my power, having these conversations for the last, since before Sandy Hook and a lot after. And it is so devastating to see now this BS narrative, the gaslighting, and, it's just so demoralizing. And then to see yoga teachers calling this man who, I linked it, like I said, you don't have to take my word for it, okay? If you're at all confused about who he was, please go read the essay this week. I linked a million things that you can just go and watch coming out of his mouth. You can just watch it. You don't have to believe me. I don't want you to believe me. I would really love for you to go click on all the different links so you can see yourself who he really was and what he was doing. Because it's not these oh yeah, we just need to talk to each other. We need to be able to listen. Yeah, that sounds great. That's terrific. If that's all it was, hey, I'd be right there with everybody. That is not who he was. And it's getting really old. It's getting really old to see people who, I don't know, really, it breaks my heart, but also makes me angry, because we do have an administration violating the Constitution of the United States every day of the week, and y'all just want to pretend it's not happening, or it doesn't matter, or, la, la, la. People are being thrown into the backs of vans by masked men who don't identify themselves. And the Supreme Court, who's got 6 justices appointed by this man, giving him a free pass, la, 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 okay. But when it's you or a family member of yours being thrown into the back of a van, this is the thing. These things that you are so entrenched, you won't even have a conversation. They're going to come back to bite you in the ass. And it just happened. This man who very sadly, pointless death, violent, pointless, absolute madness, is gone. And he was a guy who absolutely did not want to budge on the Second Amendment. He did not deserve it, but he didn't fight to change things. And he could have. He had a huge voice. It doesn't make any sense to me. It does not make any sense to me what people are doing. I don't understand it. And when you have a huge platform, and you have your one wild and precious life, as Mary Oliver said, and you choose to spend your one wild and precious life spreading bigotry, spreading racism, spreading misogyny, that's to me a terrible, terrible way to go. Terrible way to go. I'm very, very, I'm horrified about what happened to him. But my heart, my despair, my rage, it goes to Colorado, to those kids who were running for their lives and pounding on the doors of houses, hoping somebody would let them in and protect them. That's where my despair is. Not for a person who is spewing this stuff and saying some gun deaths are, just part of the price we pay. It's worth it. Like, I'm very sorry that this is what happened to him, and I am. But, I'm not despairing for him. He chose to use his life in a way that I find reprehensible and really sad. And, that's not a decent person in my book. If you think someone who is spewing racism and bigotry and misogyny and homophobia, if someone can do all that and still be a decent person in your book, then we have very, very different definitions of what a decent person is. For me, that's just a no. It's not even I don't even have to think about that. That's an absolute no. But man, a lot of yoga teachers in my feed don't seem to feel that way. And it is wild. It's wild. And I'm just exhausted. I'm exhausted. Honestly, I am exhausted. And yesterday was 9/11, which is always a hard day for me. Always a hard day for me, And I just, I don't know, friends. I don't know what's going to happen here, because something like this goes down and the president of the United States, who should get, and we're flying the flags at half-mast for someone that the president is describing as a legend and a good American and a legend, thinks the civil rights movement was a mistake. The president thinks that's a good American. He thinks black women don't have brain processing power. The president thinks a man who says that is a good American. He knows he said it. He's very aware of who Charlie Kirk is. They were close. A man who says women should submit to their husbands. Women over 30 are not attractive in the dating pool. Young girls, if they're going to go to college, should go to find a husband. The president thinks this is a good American and a legend. And we're going to fly the flags at half-mast, but not for the kids in Colorado or the kids in Minneapolis. Didn't call the governor of Minnesota when Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark and their dog Gilbert were shot, and John Hoffman didn't call, because he actually made fun of the governor, because the governor's Tim Walz. That's why, because he's a petty man who shouldn't be president, because a president should be able to take care of the entire country. That's the job, not just the people who like you. This is not like high school, okay? This is a country, and you're supposed to be a diplomat capable of diplomacy and reasonable behavior of like any whatever, just like halfway decent adult, but not him. He can't do it. So in a moment where if you're going to say something, you should talk about gun violence and how it's an absolutely unacceptable way to go. But no, not him. I don't know what's going to happen here. I think he wants war. I think he wants us warring with each other. And unfortunately, his followers just don't think. You all don't think. We're not against each other. We're not against each other. They're making us with all this crap, but he doesn't care about anyone. I don't understand how that isn't obvious. I don't understand. This man is making billions of dollars, also illegal. You're not supposed to do that when you're the president. Hi, not supposed to do that. and that's all he cares about. Does not care about you, even if you voted for him, even if you have a red hat, even if you get on social media and say he's the best thing ever, he doesn't care about you at all. I just don't understand how you don't see it. I mean, maybe you'll see it after January when all this stuff goes into effect and you can't afford health insurance anymore. Maybe then. Maybe when inflation goes up and nobody can find a job and you can't afford groceries. Maybe then, I don't know, but this man does not care about you or me or any of us at all. He doesn't care. Ugh. Anyway, I don't know what's going to happen here. I really don't. I usually can, find more hope than I'm feeling right now. Right now, I'm feeling really, just really, really sad. And it is not helping for me to see yoga teachers such a big difference, as I said at the beginning, between celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, which I genuinely hope no one is doing. Genuinely hope. Just you can feel neutral. Just don't celebrate gun violence ever, because it makes us all unsafe. And now it's made us all even more unsafe because, it is being politicized, rightly or wrongly or whatever. We don't even, know much of anything yet. I just don't know. I don't know. This president, this administration, these people, and the people who are still staunchly following them, they really seem like set on war. And I just don't know what to say. I want no part of it. But you're not helping if you are someone carrying water for these people. You're not helping. Just throwing it out there for you. Oh, okay. I'm sending you a lot of love. I hope that you are finding ways to try to take care of yourself, Not going to help anybody if you're in a puddle of despair. It's not going to help anyone if your nervous system is totally shot. So try to do something every day. If you're not someone who does yoga, get outside, go for a walk, don't take your phone, meet a friend for coffee, or do a FaceTime, anything, find ways, listen to a piece of music that makes you feel something, have a dance party in your kitchen, cook yourself a nice meal, take a bubble bath, just do things, read something really beautiful, don't allow yourself to get into a space where I was describing, I was walking down the street with my dad, don't allow yourself to end up in some space where you're just closed off and you can't feel anything at all. I wish that I could find a place, when I was a kid, I used to lose myself in books, and I wish there was a place somewhere, a magical forest, where I could just find the doors and open them up and, pile everybody in until this insanity passes. But I don't know. The door to that place is inside each person, really. And, you have to want to find it. You have to want to find it. You have to work a little bit, just to work a little bit. So anyway, you know where to find me if you need some help or some support, or just a place to be. And if you had a hard time on 9/11, I want to just send you some extra love. As I said, I was born and raised in New York City, and I was there that day. I was really, really, just for those of us who were there, it's a day that kind of lives in your bones. And I don't know, just probably be a day of mourning forever, So sending you a little extra love. Okay.